Okay, let's just jump right into it. If you're a teenager right now, you are basically growing up in a literal pressure cooker, right between the push for flawless grades, managing a perfectly curated digital footprint, and keeping up with just absolutely impossible social standards. The expectation is kind of that you never, ever mess up. It's exhausting. But in this explainer, we're going to look at some ancient source material that completely flips that script. We're diving into an old, radical idea about what it actually means to be flawed, and why being flawed isn't the end of your story. So let's confront a really uncomfortable reality of living in a world where every single mistake feels permanent. Think about it. You live in an era of screenshots and cancel culture. One wrong move feels like it can ruin your entire future. So we really have to ask, what happens when your perfection inevitably shatters? Because, spoiler alert, it absolutely will. You're going to bomb a test. You'll accidentally like your crush's post from 2018. You're going to send a screenshot of a text to the exact person who originally sent it. There's just no way around it. You are going to let people down. The anxiety you feel about that inevitable failure is totally draining. But what if there was actually a historical framework designed specifically to handle that exact moment of failure? Our source material today is titled Divine Love and Forgiveness. Now, I know, if you are naturally skeptical, you're probably rolling your eyes right now, bracing for some kind of boring Sunday school lecture. But hang with me for just a second. We are analyzing this concept not as a religious sermon, but as a radical, historical framework for understanding the human condition. Thousands of years ago, people were wrestling with the exact same anxieties about failure and authority that you're dealing with right now in the hallway at school. And honestly, the ideas they came up with are incredibly liberating today. So, our source text explores a highly specific dynamic, the idea of this immense love being extended to us while we are still actively sinners. Now, that is a loaded term we really need to decode. When you hear the word sinner, you probably picture a terrible person, or you think of outdated, highly judgmental rules designed just to make you feel guilty for living your life. But the source material is highlighting a totally different dynamic here. It's talking about being shown love and acceptance while you are still actively messing up. Not after you've fixed yourself, not after you've apologized a million times and promised to be perfect forever. Right in the middle of your mess. That's a radically different way of looking at relationships and your own personal worth. The text presents this undeniable ancient rule about power, authority, and human nature. It says, there is no slave without sin, and no master without forgiveness. Think about anyone who has authority over you. Teachers, parents, bosses, even just societal expectations. This quote argues that authority isn't just about handing out rules and punishments. It states that you literally cannot have a system with a master, like an ultimate authority figure, unless that authority possesses the capacity for forgiveness. It's practically built into the job description of power. This brilliantly illustrates two completely inescapable realities. On one hand, you have the slave, which represents captivity, or just being in a position with less power, linked directly to sin or failure. It acknowledges that when you're human, when you're just out here figuring life out, failure is a state you just can't escape. On the other hand, the master, the authority figure, is intrinsically linked to forgiveness and grace. A true authority doesn't just crush you for failing. A true authority is actually defined by their ability to forgive the very failure that is totally inevitable on your end. If we strip away all the heavy, centuries-old baggage, the text redefines sin as something remarkably simple. It's just guaranteed human failure. Once you view it this way, it stops being a spooky, judgmental word that sounds like it belongs to a medieval villain, and it starts being a deeply validating acknowledgement of your reality. Bombing a math quiz doesn't mean you are uniquely broken. It just means you're human. You are failing because human failure is literally the baseline rule of the universe. It's expected. The core theme we're extracting from our text here is the existence of unconditional grace and mercy. And the kicker? It's applied entirely regardless of how badly you mess up. Think about how insanely rare this is in your daily life. Most of the acceptance you get is totally conditional, right? You get praise if you get an A. You get likes if your post looks cool. You get rewarded if you perform flawlessly on the field. It is an exhausting treadmill. But the source material points to a structural framework of the universe where grace and mercy are absolutely unconditional. They're applied regardless of your human failure. Your worth just isn't tied to your performance.
This essentially creates a two-step mathematical formula for existence. Step 1, the inevitability of human failure. Step 2, the necessity of unconditional grace. Because human failure is a total guarantee, because it is literally a 100% statistical certainty that you will make mistakes, unconditional grace and mercy are an absolute necessity for anyone in a position of power. If a system doesn't have step 2, it will inevitably collapse under the sheer weight of step 1. This ancient text is basically arguing that the universe is structurally designed to absorb your mistakes through grace.
So we'll wrap up this explainer with a thought for you to take with you. If this foundational text argues that even the absolute highest authority must operate on unconditional mercy, why do you refuse to grant that same grace to yourself when you inevitably fail? You hold yourself to these impossible standards, beating yourself up over every awkward conversation, every single bad grade, and every perceived flaw. But if the ancient philosophical blueprint of the universe recognizes that human failure is guaranteed and meets that failure with unconditional grace, isn't it time you stopped being your own harshest critic? When you look in the mirror today, remember this ancient framework and ask yourself, can I finally afford to give myself a little bit of mercy?